I mean, I've really looked for it. There's no grand unifying Freemasonry principle of whatever. There's just them stealing elements from other religions, and this, in the context of one religion, it's called cherry picking. If you go, here's our holy scripture, we follow it, and then you go, here it says you can throw a live baby into a volcano, so the volcano doesn't get angry and erupt lava that will melt all the tribes and all their nearby huts. And they're like, oh, but we like to pay awe and reverence to the goddess volcano when it trembles, and we like to take. We know that means she's angry, so to make her less angry, we throw babies inside the volcano, so that she doesn't erupt over the people as much. It's that they're a denomination that's hidden in terms of metaphysical integrity, and that's it. Is like why they like Satan is that it's like they see it as siding with the theological character who's into the con and put the pulling of the con against the most powerful being in theology, which they'll imagine as well, God. And neither the church, as I said, the Church of Satan does not acknowledge the existence of God. The same goes with, not since after Woodstock in the 60s, and it started to taper off then, within the first generation from Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan, his daughter Zena, and her partner Nicholas Schreck got together and started saying, no, we are going to represent Satan as an archetype or ideal for the outclass, the outlawed, the underdog, the loner, the picked on, the questioner, the Socratic, the one to ask questions, the one who doesn't conform, the adversary, the opponent, the nonconformist, the disagreeer, and all these idiosyncratic aspects that are beneficial to character, on balance with virtues, but they make the best out of what the devil is said to stand for. That doesn't involve poof stories of Lucifer using his tail to win a bow and arrow contest in a public toilet or something. It's just not about any supernatural feats. So they recognized what atheism has understood some centuries beforehand. And I think that's important. Yeah. I'll talk about deists and Freemasons in another talk, but I'm tired. So it's time, in the words of Brian Adams, I've got to fuck off for a neighborhood walk, and we'll be back in a short amount of time. That's coming out at Brian Adams' new album, about untitled as yet. I'm not sure of the name. But I'm not even sure that's a single, but anyway. I'll tell you a story about a man named Shh. When he was young, he was born black, and though it said pressure, trained passionately to be an entertainer. Then, as the years went by, he remained a very successful entertainer, and suits came in saying, well, your entertainment constitutes allegations of pedophilia in relation to for this reason, and this song, and this clip, and that, this, and this, that, and this, that. But it did not occur to him, because of what gets said about when you're under or over the age, to say, oh, can you simply notify them that I've been an entertainer since I was the age of 4 or 5 years old? Instead, he filed a note that you might be advised legally to sue the network that broadcasted you. And so when he chose for the network's lawyers had to pay both the suer and sustain that there may be some truth to the veracity of their initial claim. So when more suits continued to come in, the Borean stemmers were able to change the men's colour for the full body tip-top to toe from black to white. Now you can make all the moves you'd like to make rubbing at your groin. Forever and ever. And the funny thing about the Borean stemmers is there was the Bohr guy and the relativity guy not knowing that the Arabians had maybe masturbated them before they had their debate. Possibly. Remember, that was all about the time things went public. What if scientific discoveries were made and it's decided no interviews, no publicity, just more R&D? Radio and destruction. I'm no fan of the stemmers. And now what the next reversal is, make a bunch of people claim to be insane because of television. They need to look at some sort of screen to do what they're doing. In fact, it's a conflict of interest that they can do profiling on the basis of what they need to do their own work, forcing them to hide it. That's worse than boring. This has been a good cruise this week. My blessings to my friend Ethan. I've always loved the way you think. I'll nick off now and watch some telly. All the best. If you're aware of things like that, the Police and Citizens Youth Club, which I was a boy when it was around, neighborhood watch signs disappearing, cops are up to other things, and I am totally convinced at the whim of the Freemasons, who essentially will have deeds and titles that trace back to land rights from colonial Australia, and also rules that give them certain powers to exude over the cops. Now, are you or are you not in favour of this prospect? Suppose a child abuser from one family learns of an abandoned and neglected child from another family. Should that person be allowed to wear a police officer's uniform and arrest that citizen without warrant to address some issue? I'm saying this is absolutely complicating what's already a fuck-up police state mentality even more, because they're always only going to be saying that such swaps should be done connotative to a singular case. So a person who, if they say you could be a child of neglect and be a child abuse survivor at the same time, depending on which case you're addressing. So what can end up happening is the child abuser from one family meets someone who's a child abuse survivor from another family, and takes after him with more aggression while dressed up as a police officer with a police car, a van, and does the same fucking, why don't you obey my command, son, blah, 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 routine over and over again. So this cop shop swap, I gather, can only take place on occasions with some deed title ownership of Freemason land. And where I've noticed it happen has been in places where the given suburb you're in has no capital chemist, arguably on the surface. I'm getting told that I both live in Lynham and O'Connor at the moment. So there's a time dilution between whether I cite my address as O'Connor or as Lynham. And that is, but it was in Dixon. Where there is a capital chemist. That I'm definitely did not meet the legitimate police officer. But anyway, this would be based on golden rules, one to others as you would have them do to you, has been a trajectory rule for making up the strategies. And it's loved by unifiers. It's not the original Confucian statement of Confucius. who said, or Rabbi Hillel of the Jewish Torah, who said, that which is detestable, don't do to others. Because that means you assess what you've mutually rejected first, and then see how long you get along, how well you get along together with one another. Instead of going, well, if I walk on a street and see some nice pair of tits, I squeeze them because then she'll give me she'll suck my cock in return, because that's me doing unto others as I would have them do unto me. So that's the golden rule. And if I do it, that's all I have to tell the judge, because the Bible's really holy in the courts. Oh, it's really holy there. Oh, it's so holy. Oh, it's holy. Now, I want you to think about lobbying from the Pharmacy Guild against the salesmen of cigarettes. And I want you to think about the packaging displays they're always showing you. Bodies must have had, incidentally, written consent of donation by will of body to morgue to assist scientific research. Or those body parts and those dead babies wouldn't appear on cigarette packets in the first place without violation of desecration rules concerning death rights. I want you to consider that. And now I want you to consider this question. How can anyone in hospital that dies or suffers horribly from the side effects of what can even be forced and non-consensually ingested substances on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme and from the Pharmacy Guild, and why they won't even list the known side effects on the drug packaging, or have the side effects explicitly stated to a person in the presence of an attorney to any patient before injecting them or forcing them down their throats? And why is it that we aren't seeing dead patients on the boxes and packaging of pharmaceutical products? I want you to take those two questions, put them together, and now the next question, I'm not going to say it to you, because I think you're smart enough to know how. Bye. Now, so when I do report to you that Alan Sutherland / Earnshaw is a dyke, what I'm trying to say is that, for someone like her to have all the options she has just to go work in psychomyology, she actually doesn't get what she's fucking dipping it with having reconciled her relationship to her bio dad who put up adoption, who she said was a pharmacist. What she didn't put together about has me so wanting girl to punch her fucking head in. They are forever out to say that you can't be from a broken, destroyed, or ruined origins and make a recovery and then make a success of yourself. They are absolutely against that. And if she can't tell that, she needs to be sucking pussies that have VD, and then to then earn her rights to be called a dyke by lesbians, to then go through a ceremony of their own nomination, for them to then judge if they decide she's a fitting lesbian or not, and then be cast out because she does not think straight. She fucking does not think straight. But where she might think she's doubled up is, now I've got both parents, I can do both and be a Christian as well. Okay, well then you suck your bio, do a double donor ender, where you grab your bio dad's dick with the left hand, and you grab your adopted dick with dad's dick with the right hand, and you jack them both off like you're milking cows, milk them, and then you take both their cream and then go. And then you come and then you tell a dyke who is getting assessed by a magistrate, a lesbian magistrate, to judge you for whether you're able to tell that the difference is your taste's ability to distinction. Yeah, because fuck, I know you know how to ruin friendships. I don't know how you will feign friendships to ruin families. And what you've chosen to do professional-wise, you want to teach. I've forgotten how to do fucking Running Man and relegated all credits to Michael Jackson. I didn't learn that shit from you, Alany. You fucking dyke. Fuck you. Oh, fuck me though. Maybe I forgot. You have to talk like this. That you actually the way you talk. You're supposed to do something, and I'm getting roasted, Alany. But the truth about getting roasted is supposed to be. You're supposed to have done something first, and then entertainers come in, and then they get you roasted. They get you roasted, but you have to do something first. Fuck me. Maybe I missed Alany Henschel Mania. I missed Alany Sutherland Mania. Fuck me. I may be the fucking idiot sending you a tape in like this. And fuck. But if I'd known a classic girl that hadn't been fostered by either of us hadn't been fostered by you in some way back when I was in church, then fuck. Whew. Maybe she'd be one I'd be fucking. And if I had had a better small group, fucking a better person to lead me into the church, who had the wise to lead me back out of it at some time, maybe I'd fuck her. Maybe I would fucking come so hard in her mouth, her teeth would start melting, Alany. Her teeth would fucking melt. So when you get roast, Alany, it's true. It's a bit more than your due. So look at me. And look at you. Well, fucking hell, motherfuck me. If these profilers, these dipshit profilers, fucking thought two things that my Omega Green writings, they read them and they thought both that there's no such thing as my Antichrist intact, and they forgot the Amiga Guard. Then they must have been playing Amiga Red as fucking when they played Marvel vs. Capcom on arcade games or some shit like that. These people what have they got to do with the fucking case at hand? What are those faggots on about? Maximum. You want to hear a little joke? I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. When you think I'm saying that I want Roger and Gary Cans jailed because of what I know, they know that I know because of them. It includes them saying various things about, well, under the pretense that certain video that people know me more about the video. The video guy meant that back when I was working with them, they were saying certain things after doing a bunch of passes and then blah blah blah. Might have included referencing liability for the 9/11 incident, which resulted in a bit of a panic. The Rogers Street sign now in Civic near you. If you've got rights to detail there, it's going to be shares of land rights under there. And what you notice about these areas has a common thread that there are no capital chemist shops on the same land where he's able to decorate the streets and the cities in other ways. So, I mean, where's Capital Chemist Civic? Any idea? You can bounce around and thought about the matter. Bounce. Everybody, bounce. Who knows how he does it? Who knows? But he needs to be testified against in court and by me. And I can do that in various ways of court here. But there's a matter of legal precedence. I speak to courts in another country. On another matter. The only thing that's really been caught is that I'm better off speaking without attorney when in court. But I don't sing the national anthem and I'm proud of it. You say it with world for toil. Some of you, by this age, unless you want to restore living conditions to Gallipoli for the citizenry, you might as well fuck that anthem off Just get everyone to burp and fart at the same time when they say, please rise and sing for the national anthem. And those who can burp and fart at the same time get a medal of some kind. And then that's our national anthem. World for toil. Double, double, toil and trouble. Oh, so toiling today at work. I'm so toiled by this problem that I can't solve. There's so much to toil. Don't toil with me, cunt. Oh, what does it mean? World for toil. What dumb fucking... Oh, but have pity. We are trying to recover from the Queen dumping us here. By what? By embracing her religion. Oh, pity us. Please. We didn't really... We maybe think like inbred, but doesn't mean we really are inbred. And then Tip Top Sunshine is now being produced in underground labs where they used to have meth labs. And may the meth labs now rise to the fucking surface instead. World for toil. Fuck. We said give the kids a chance, not give them collusion rights. Anyway, your fuck up, not mine. World for toil. Oh, when they say they're against bisexuals, they will do so because of having one employee or more who they have employed on that same basis as a shield against the becoming accused. Trust me, I know too much I didn't want to know about those two faggots. And remember, faggot is not an offence towards the gay community, it's a defence of, because it's supposed to be about same-sex attraction for them. It is not a faggot is someone who, in order to admit themselves from how indecent they are, should admit that if it's a conflict stemming from the heart, then they are probably same-sex attracted, and should attempt to kiss the boots of decent gays in order to roll their way back and go from and gay people can call them faggots. Obviously, that's the fucking difference. You don't get rid of what's like dyke and fag. They have their absolute. We need a more expansive linguistic as it is. Just to get rid of these conflationary theorists. I thought that for a tree told me that fag and dyke are words we just have to get rid of. We'll make like a tree branch out and leave because you're not much of a networker. Oh, yeah. And if it's to discuss legal matter here in Australia, when I said I would back the AG, if that was to be construed as the Attorney General, I can't be contacted by, this is the AG, because there are too many AGs that I'm aware of. Yeah. Fucking now, Gam. Go toil. You go toil with the world. I have been deprived of my pain relief. I'm about to start invoking the rights to use knife and stabbing weapons. Anyone who's going to attempt to penetrate the surface of my skin with an injectable drug against my consent as a matter of self-defense. You understand? I'm studying it now. This is nothing my father could have taught me. This is what you country has taught me. So suck dead Doberman's dick. There's chum pow cum chutney in there, and that's not an Asian recipe. I'm now starting to really think that all pharmacists are really about, chiefly speaking, is honors and guesswork. I made the Canberra Hospital and all of its one time I'm going to write a poem on the ladder. And so the copper who had grabbed me saying, pointing his butt up at the Dixon Church Children's Playground, and I said, you need the warrant or I can't be arrested by you. And he grabs me cuffed and I'm dragged with my butt getting scraped from the point of contact by him to the vehicle. While to the vehicle's left was the church playground, the aforementioned church playground. So top swapping, unilateral casing and profiling is very, very fucking divisive. Because what they can do is say, well, look, you were a child abuser at home. So, someone who is a known child of neglect, domestic neglect. If you're going to do this job, with this person, then you can make it up. I've been saying fuck the golden rule altogether. Fuck the golden rule with my principle. It's not fucking. It's a bad rule. Don't do to others what is detestable to you. They are not fucking equivocal. It means you work out what you mutually dislike with amongst the people that deserve your trust. Anyone who says that that's the same we do unto others, you have them done to you, that means I can go and finger a woman walking on the street because I want her to masturbate me. Because I'm too tired. You know, no idea what it's like, love. Fucking slut. Shut up, slut. You're causing too much chaos. Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe Simpson. Oh, Jay. Oh, Jay. Oh, Joe. I don't smoke J's anymore. One day I'm going to get the faculty together. Remember? Fuck Canberra Hospital. Here is what they're stopped. Wait. Except for this bind kill track, Roger Toll and Gary Can. Do you want to know why I use a toaster? Guns are too quick. There is not enough time to save precious moments. Three times too many AF piggers. 3 times too many. And now 3 times the hospital. You two decide between yourselves now which agency gets charged and publicized charged with all of the burdens of the alleged crime that you wanted me for. Lord mercy. Who gets it yet? Kiss my Baptist ass. I'll shed some light on the subject. You can kiss my Baptist ass. There's an evil pittied in our brains. There's nothing to do. You know, it drives us the same. How come I'm the last one to get invited to a court hearing that actually means anything? Now, the LGBT community being offensive, as a definition, it doesn't mean to say that you're offended by gay people. I like gay people. I just think they should be defined by same-sex attraction, not defined by hatred of the other the opposite anatomic gender, which is, I think, the fallacy that goes on there. But what it masks in religion is that whether it's women who women having gay sex would be found to be being unlawful because they weren't sleeping with a man, and for that reason it would constitute a sex offence for which they could get I'm not sure. Death by stoning. Death by stoning applied definitely to homosexual men having sex. For women, it meant well, if a woman doesn't cry out loudly enough when being raped, she should be stoned to death as an accessory to her own defilement. Um, it could be she's running the risk of defiling the woman that she's with by having sex with her. It could have been either way. From both, I think it's for both women are now intuitively more empathetic, but both converge on biphobia in the sense that if they're both celebrating Jesus' death as a life-giving act, then they're in favor of killing, abducting, holding at ransom, torturing, executing, killing, and eating a bisexual, and then framing him later. And one of my old nemesis, the Mr. Lewis from church, who had talked to me about, I'm prepared to Skywalker him, because yeah, as in like just keep bringing out your terms and justifications. I've got a channel full of stuff now. What have you got to say? Because as in, what have you got to say to this claim that this is what when bisexuals are dying in their 30s all over the place, and Jesus dies at the age of 33? How can that parallel alone not freak the shit out of you? And you've even got the corporate body duality of like kingdom and Roman Empire, and now we've got private sector and government, and then commoners. So that's another proof, because yeah, and the psychosexual opposite of an inbreeder who's going to be like something that they'll experience. The true extreme of go fuck yourself, and make sure that your kids fuck themselves and have babies with themselves, is that yeah, they both you see it true in True Detective series 1, like the killers are like laughing, giggling as they go about their killing. But how is that any less offensive than me watching you take communion and hear this? Oh, this is my body broken for you. He stretched out his arms and said, "I love you this much," and then died. I'm like, well, he didn't fucking nail him himself, did he? Like, if you go and make a tree plantation in your backyard now, you don't go to Mitre 10 or fucking Bunnings and say, look, Bunnings, why did you put an arrangement of bonsai trees in my backyard? Like, I now bow to you. I bow to you, Bunnings Hardware. Like, you've got so many aisles, and you know that's sacred, because at weddings there's always aisles. The bride and groom walk down the aisle. But like, if I want to get a screw from you at Bunnings, I only have to go down aisle 6. If I want to get hammered, I can go down aisle 7. If I want to get jacked, I can go down aisle 5. There's all these fucking options at Bunnings. If I want to get clipped, I can go to aisle 2. There's all these fucking options. So, yeah, comparatively, the psychosexual opposite is someone that they're going to kill, and then murderers that kill trophies keep the trophy after they've killed the person. What if I'm for America? Fuck Australia's government. Tell the pharmacy guild, come to the rape room, motherfuckers. Can suck a dick. International at Hostum, the case is Branton versus the Australian Pharmacy Guild via international hostaging. Can be heard at Australia's courts, now open for sale. Send me the right drugs, you dumb 2-bit fuckwits, or I will rape your gods before you, and I will smear your fucking reputation like diarrhea. Like dear diarrhea. Today I went cheek to cheek and
I feel like I can find a star in between my cheek to cheek and turn the other cheek and turn the other fucking cheek. Wow, fuck Canberra. Fuck you, Canberra. Fuck you. Yeah, you want a cigarette? Do you see why I use a toaster? See why I use a toaster? Guys, they're too quick. There is not enough time to savor the fucking precious little moments. Scott Morrison, how much can you lube the old bitch up for me? You old slap. I trust you have it well preserved. Which one is she? Edison Park? Can I feel around for her at Edison Park? Well, it won't be called a bridge and tunnel operation.
Sorry, I neglected to mention. Been drained as fucked in pain, discomfort, and still talking and having a lot to say. It's a bit like being pushed into the sense of feeling a bit on your last legs, like before you're about to faint during a running race. The procession of the cross is something that is an impact in why the rejection of it is sort of why I learnt to comfortably walk slow. The term "on your marks, get set, go" is and if there's links between that and the Gospel of Mark when people are learning to run, or whether saying that to people while teaching them the Bible, because it's going to mean that they're going to run right past Mark and just believe mainly in the claims of Matthew, Luke, and John. Can work that way too. But a comfortable walking pace, and you can also blabble like this. It's just that what you're saying is not demented shit entirely. It's the proof of accepting the challenge of the Queen's question: to what greater source of inspiration can be turned than the imperishable truths to be found in that treasure house called the Holy Bible? And the answer to that being, well, any podcast, any book, any fiction book, any non-fiction book, any fucking book you can find. So that's when you have to consider the hierarchy of the chain of command, leadership, and how leaders are making themselves happy when off duty. If there's the the transference. I think it's a misuse of the term channeling, because there's no whatever summary you'll give for trying to say who Jesus Christ was or is, you aren't right. To the extent of any principle that matters. Like if you were to say Jesus Christ is a person called Jesus Christ, it would be like circular. If you were to say Jesus Christ was aware of bread, then you could go, okay, yeah, that's across the board. As to how a Genesis-made pedophile would turn on a Christian, you've got the loincloth that's a blockade from, well, I think at the actual time of the event it was because what Jesus' body went through as his central nervous system was shutting down, and all the breathing difficulties associated with the pressure on the diaphragm from being nailed to a cross. He's going through the thoughts of his last moments of life, and so he's gradually dying, he's on his way out, his death is really slow and stretched out. And this is to become a wafer biscuit that's symbolic of the eating of his body after he goes through this process. And thought life-giving. So that also means, and has added to the argument I'm always making, that his psychological type which everyone will say, whether you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John separately or together, he loved everyone. It's circumstantial variables is that he is God dressed up as a king of the Jews in the Gospel of John, and that he is dying voluntarily in the Gospel of John. He's sacrificing himself to save you from himself. And in the Gospel of Mark, he's an innocent murder victim who's asked, "Are you king of the Jews?" wrongfully, and does not answer in the affirmative to the question. So, either way, that would mean, given the amount of attention that was first put on the man himself, for all of these books to have been written about him, and given the way he cared for his own people, he cared for them independent of the aspects of the Jewish Torah. So he's actually the one. Actually, that might account for why Hitler got thrown off, because taking a donkey that wasn't his, riding a horse that wasn't his, defied Moses' commandment number 4 about not stealing thy neighbour's ox, nor ass, nor manservant, nor maidservant, nor anything else that is thy neighbour's. And it's a fucked up commandment because it equates possession of animals with possession of men and maidservants and wives. Give me a sec. And that he also taught his story, the Son of Man, whatever it is that you think it means. I'm thinking it's an indication of him being averted to the Adam and Eve procreation story, because they at least knew then that they were the descended progeny of Adam and Eve to a certain degree. The question here is, does this teaching subjugate women even more? Because he's saying Son of Man and not woman. However, it's not until the later Gospels that you find him Mary-pegged. So it could have been that there was a rule at the time that women were just not to be mentioned at all, no matter how well they were getting along with anyone, because there's no book title within the Bible. There's one, I think, credited to a female author. And that may have come out of a 1960s dispute about the biblical canon, back when they did have the story about the fucking dragon in it or whatever, where too many women were complaining about how come there isn't one woman that's written a single scroll in the Bible. And the canon committee went, okay, fine, here's one for you. Now go off to Woodstock and get stoned. Finally, you can celebrate. There's a woman that wrote a book of the Bible. But as to whether or not women, no matter whether they were enslaved or not, were to deserve a mention, King Herod's queen doesn't get a mention. So he would have. Christians, on the other hand, are so inbred that they'll make a trophy out of whoever they've killed as well as killing them. It's that inbred. So they must. This would be people that would practice inbreeding while believing it was the only way to save the human race, while believing without inbreeding the species wouldn't survive, while thinking we owe the fact that we exist now this very day in 2021, we owe it to two people inbreeding. If it weren't for what they did, no matter how gross, they had to do it, and Jesus and God called it perfect. Like God Himself called it perfect. Biblical literalists will have that in their scriptures. Not in my terms and phraseology, but they'll have those facts of narrative. So their opposite would be a bilateral brain that's not inbred, that in terms of political structure does not have any standing in a kingdom or in the Roman Empire. That's to say, not a gladiator, not a chief, not like a war chief, not a king, not a duke, not a prince. Converge on such a person and then kill them, and then love that they killed them so much that they're just going to keep telling the same bullshit over and over and over again. And that's worse than a psychopathic murderer. That's worse than a psychopathic murderer that goes to jail to brag about his crimes only even further. Christians make weekly ceremonies about this murder of this gentleman in the 1st century, who would probably be an atheist if he knew the word wasn't going to get him set on fire. The word atheist. Son of man shit. I'm out of battery again, so I'll come back. Until then, fuck you, and fuck you too.
But my argument to any Christian is that, be it by the comparative of the Gospel of Mark, we put aside Matthew and Luke for the time being, but they do prove a gradient curve of the same truth, heading towards the supernatural, be it by the supernatural circumstances. A bilateral brain and a bisexual heart are the best and only way to account for what is written about the man Jesus, called Jesus Christ. Directly. Even Mark's Gospel, I think, says this is the story of Jesus of Nazareth called Christ. So it even admits that the Christ was like a later addition, even in its opening formality. So it doesn't say, it obviously acknowledges that there was a man named Jesus of Nazareth first, and Christ is a title meaning the anointed one. And so, the more the later Gospels have more miracles and more intense rising from the dead, returning from the grave, rising people from the dead, healing, making people walking on water, throwing pigs into mud, turning water into wine, all except Apollonius of Tyana's miracle ability to walk through walls, and all the other miracles of Jesus's, they're all found in pagan sources, thousands of years prior to the birth of the man himself, making it look like a kingdom cover-up of an unjust suicide murder of an innocent enslaved man, which would make no kingdom look proud if they'd be like, well, where is your honor, kingdom? And so the kingdom would do the Diana flag hoist maneuver, which is where, no, don't put the flag up yet and wait and see if the crowd protest. No, the crowd's protested, quick, put the flag up. And it's a bit like that. It'd be like the Bible going, well, let's just have the Gospel of Mark in here about Jesus. Nope, they're complaining. Jesus isn't making people rise from the dead anymore. Now we've got people saying they don't think there's an afterlife. Bring back Matthew, Luke, and John. So they bring him back. Either way they go, until they drop the claim he loved everyone. He's a bisexual. And then they would drop it and say he was a bisexual and it's not been recognised now, except for the fact that supernatural is a block term. It means either not yet, better to be discovered by nature, or beyond nature. And if something that's beyond nature is never going to be defined, and once something is caught up to in the supernatural realm and described, it belongs to the constitution of naturalism and is no longer a supernatural phenomenon because it's been studied. And this is what makes the church's treatment of Galileo horrible, because he was acquitted of the charge of heresy in 1993. And he was a heretic in about the 1600s, or whenever he said the earth wasn't at the center of the universe. I'll be back. I have to sit down. I'm feeling dizzy. I'm opposed to Karl Marx's speech about religion being the opiate for the masses because of what it does to implicit language. And what we obviously get from the statement, and this was even one that was to be used by Hitch. So I used to not mind the statement until I got sick. But it can be invoked in a number of ways to say religion is equivocal to a form of delusion, of delusional miscomprehension of the earth and of reality. It can't be that it's a painkiller. It can be that it's about killing people in pain, because that's what they hang on their walls and pray to every church service. But opium is great for pain. And that's a problem I have with Marxism. Communism at large, I don't know much all about. I really only, all of the Karl Marx works I've read through has been to see what he had to say about religion, and calling it the opiate for the masses. Well, the masses don't have opium since it became a restricted substance. Restricted substance. It used to be a plant, as I've mentioned in the past, that
people had freedom of access to and choice concerning the consumption thereof when they would self-medicate. Now, what was I going to talk about? I've lost my train of thought. I know how many more people do you think have started saying they've lost their train of thought when being in a kilometre or two's radius of the tram from Civic to Gungahlin? We'll be right back. Flawless victory, banality. Question: what are the reasons why bilateral individuals can be told that they look better? Actually, internal to the question, you look better, or you look good, if not contrived, how can it be rationalized as a bias if it's not commensurate with inner well-being? One is, if you were to take your figure and look at your proportions, your waist, your height, whatever, you can then say, do I shrink zoom approximate to the common gaze at the figure of Jesus on a wall, like on a cross on a wall, and it'll be like the longer your hair gets, the more your chin's like, and you got your arm out, and I think it is that because communion isn't eating his actual body, no one knows what communion has, aside from mocking their own intelligence, and also mocking the most supernatural version of the purpose alleged for why Jesus died, which is supposed to be for them and their sins. What they have the rights to say is, how and why are you saying that you're giving us his broken body to eat, to be cleansed of our sins, if A, we haven't really performed any sins this week, B, this fragmented bread has nothing to do with the parts of a human body, and C, we're all eating it as a group anyway. So there's that. I think, like a chalk outline, if you could fit the chalk outline of Jesus on the cross in that body position against your body, so that yours encompassed it, then you'll get compliments, while being a bilateral, then you'll get compliments from Christians that you look and seem to be really well when you actually feel really terrible, and your health feels really shithouse on the inside. Because once again, it's my argument that psychologically speaking, the only excuse they've got for themselves is that they want to be the Mark 12 policeman and kill Jesus because they believe in human sacrifice, ritual human sacrifice. Though he would have surely had one. He's said to have had four, up to four, at different times. Behavior irrespective and title even irrespective. This may have been so totally against imposed custom, and then even all the more so against custom of imposed like serfs and slaves and those who were around Jesus enough to write about him. I realized I didn't answer in a previous recording how do you get from 33 AD to 33 CE to 70 CE without complete loss of quality of information. And one reason for that is that they didn't have Nintendos, they didn't have commercial TV, they didn't have ads. They didn't have ads that are so stupid and insulting to the intellect as to tell you that their product, service, location, or whatever trade they do is the best one in the business, like every ad for everything fucking does. Or also to tell you what your personal evaluation of the business is. Like Macca's, I'm loving it. Like, no. If I order a bacon and egg McMuffin and there's even one little bit of eggshell in the bacon and egg McMuffin, I'm not fucking loving it. Like, I say, you take back this chicken fucking This chicken's abortion. I want you to take it back, and I want you to cook about a fresh one, please. Because who wants egg and a bacon who wants eggshell and a bacon egg with muffin? I'm trying to remember this verbatim and without painkillers. I do need my painkillers. So, yeah, I've done a number of checks, and unless it's going to be about public sector hospital telemetry getting hacked, or the claim that Australia wants to make about me, if should the worst happen, in relation to those with whom I am to settle and resolve an international case, will mean that I die and they turn and say, Luke died and now we're lumping all these reasons against you because Luke didn't get to make his contest, unfortunately. We wished he did. We tried everything. We tried calling him, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I'm not receiving those calls because they've been faking them. I have infinite credit, so I have no way of tracking by expenditure of money as to whether or not they've used that credit. I would encourage people buying smartphones and with phone credit to try and not get infinite calls and texts, to make sure they get a log. Because if you're getting hacked and your network's being used, your hacker either has to know how to compromise the entire network, or they're going to deduct from your bill. And if they deduct from your bill of infinite calls, then you're not going to get a trace. That's when you have to fall back on fucking primal schedule mode, which is like, despite the fact that there are polite but serious things I would like to say over the phone, I will only really use my phone to say, hello, who is this, how are you, what would you like to do, where should we meet, and we'll talk about everything else, all the other, whatever. Avoid the questions types that force multiplier reasons in answers, and then make sure that all that happens when you have person-to-person conversation, because then you can at least start to get a track on what your compromised lines of communication are. And I'm saying this as a self-rehabilitated formal prank caller. I used to make prank calls all the time. I prank called, a woman answered and there was a dog barking in the background, and we could hear her yelling at it, going, "Oh, be quiet, Benji, I'm on the phone." And as soon as she put us back on the phone, I'm going, "Oh, and how is Benji doing?" Our voices hadn't broken, and we were prepubescent. And so, when you're prepubescent and you're hanging out with your friends, it turns out you sound like about every third person's, everyone with a kid, you sound pretty much just like their fucking kid, we discovered. And so, we were like, "Oh, yeah, going alright. I'm glad Benji's alright, although he's barking a bit, but I'm stuck at KFC at Arendelle. Do you think there's any chance you could come and pick me up?" And that was the worst extent of a prank call. Because then we're left with thrills and giggles over them going to collect no one from somewhere. Now, though I'm open to this, actually, if Jennifer Connelly I've loved since Labyrinth, as well as that's where I first encountered Bowie. But there's in the film Requiem from a Dream, Jennifer Connelly does like the Requiem for a Dream post puberty, and like it's great. It would have been if one of those crazy goblins had handed her that double ender for the scene in Requiem for a Dream. Who's to say? Would it make the scene a bit more fucked up or not? They could after all say it's part of a side effect of having indulged and consumed some of the opium for the people, that she saw a goblin from the Bog of Eternal Stench hand her a double-ended dildo for her to play a scene in Requiem for a Dream and do that mad sex scene. I tipped my hat to her then. I thought, whoa, you've gotten gutsier. But I didn't say you've gotten gutsier while she had the other dildo in her because, for personal reasons. But in terms of I had a boner. No, I think I think I want my coffee. Wait a sec. and a change of. All right, let's picture a Christian skeptic. A Christian skeptic. What's he saying? What's he saying? If you're an Antichrist disciple and you believe in Marilyn Manson, then his film clip, "The Man That You Fear," which in many respects I've felt myself become in a lot of my dealings with people, but I've kept it reserved because it's, to me, it's a bit sacred. The ways there are certain things in life that a person wants achieved on their own terms. Like, there was a guy I used to go to church with who would be like, well, sins will be passed down from your father through to the third and fourth generation. And that meant to me things like never reproduce, don't get a girlfriend, don't get a girl pregnant, and I'd watch X-Men, and I'd watch these shows about mutants and freaks and creeps and underdogs, and that's where I started. Manson also had taken a stance at the time somewhat concerning anti-heroism, and how heroes were like the new martyrs. This was going around the time of the Hollywood period, and it's probably why Freemasons are telling cops, well, tell people not to be a hero, when only a generation or so before that, they were giving out hero awards to kids just for, not prosecuting or for clapping when they saw Constable Kenny Koala get finger banged. But a scene in a film clip of Man That You Fear depicts, and you got to remember that he's the anti-Christ superstar. He was never the anti-Jesus, and it comes out in the interviews. Then he didn't hate Jesus. In Angel with the Scabbed Wings, he is the maker, he is the taker, he is the savior, he is the raper. Why is that? Because when you accept these psychological, people don't put the connections together, but they can be put together in a way that's mind-opening for those that want to be free of Christianity. Which is that, a person one day goes, oh, I've been a Christian now for 3 years, oh damn, the pastor raped me. Now, what attracted the pastor to rape you? Well, one factor I've submitted is the only options that Adam and Eve had for making more children, being of sexual arousal to the priest, and you turning to Jesus Jesus Christ for your lordship rights. So he's got your lordship rights, and they're going, oh, okay, and the priest induces the Holy Spirit to go home off duty to either think about how by some vow he's made he's not fucking anyone, or to fuck his pastor's wife, and saying, oh Jesus, oh Jesus, oh God, oh Jesus, during moments of sexual climax while being sexually active. Now, personal log supplemental. It has recently come to my attention that the same fallacies that have bothered me throughout this entire decade have continued in regards to third-party judgment of doppelgangers and strategies designed around the connotations, interpreting the content as connotative directions in the voiceover and the imagery as models to reproduce. I have to tell you, Baptist, and people on the bus pulling their pants down, showing some butt crack, and doing the asshole fart while going, I'll sue you. I'm waiting for crab walking in pairs, back to back crab walking at that window. I'm waiting for people to get like a door frame, knock out the mesh, and then use the wireframe as a large photo, and then pay, hold on to it in a stationary position, and pay someone to carry it around with them in a stationary position. But the bus bent over. This is his butt crack showing, and this is making these secretive signs. Wait. I'm gonna sue you. I'm gonna sue you. Pointing his ass crack of a photo of the stud. I'm very sleep deprived. Yes, connotative questions are different to connotative propositions, and annotative propositions are different to annotative questions. Oh, fuck. What next? What next? Basket weaving. So, yeah, I guess that's that on the topic. I'm John Rick, bitch, and thank you for listening. Thank you, audience, for listening. What else? Hermaphrodites are also more natural than the view that any inhumane scope of crimes committed by Roger Toll and Gary Cairns can be paid for and bought by by their loyals, bringing free drugs to you. That I respect only in the context of a pre-established honor code that is upheld by both parties, and then not betrayed by the party that thinks that drugs, after all, they're talking about black market recreational drugs. Now, if they want to argue they have a health benefit too, then on both front of markets, they've got owners to own up to honor codes that they were the first to teach you about and the first to break as well. And that's where my arguments diverge into how every aspect of the mistreatment of Jesus of Nazareth by the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve incestors, have such psychotic disposition of mind that the way they get relief from being themselves, because they can't stand being themselves in some way. That's actually how I view ancient, like Bronze Age monarchies. They always have to have an allegiance with another great power, and that's some reassurance. Be it that they marry a daughter off to extend a kingdom, be it that they have ties to the Roman Empire, and the kingdoms can do the arrests while the empire can do the executions, so they can always pass the buck, so they can always be the dog, and they can just relay responsibility to the other body, like we have private and public sector here with government and private sector in our capitalist system. Liability and not stepping up. It's once you understand the history that it began with me and this chemist, because I helped apprehend and arrest someone who stole from their business, and I did it very carefully. I did it by doing a number of things. Getting a friend to trace and track the direction and trajectory of a runner that had stolen a fragrance bottle from this capital chemist shop. I planted him as a mark to survey the runner, to work out where he would go to regain energy, and I timed that I would by all probability be able to intersect with police and security and the staff from whichever store was robbed. I thought by the blue shirts that the uniforms that the staff were wearing that it was better electricals, but it turned out to have been Capital Chemist, and Better Electricals was located on the upper right staircase of the Tuggeranong Hyperdome at that time. So when we pursued this shoplifter, it was me, my friend, the shop clerk, and some cops, and though I helped chase, I did not physically tap the guy. I didn't trip him over. I didn't try and tackle him. I didn't punch him. I didn't kick him. I didn't even yell at him. I just was an added runner accompanying the group of people that were running after him. So I didn't even solicit a confession. I didn't commit what you would have called a genuine. It wouldn't have met the criteria of a genuine citizen's arrest. And that's the ironic part. I've looked back and wondered if it was staged because the police cost me my childhood in terms of parents from age 5 onwards. It would be very easy for them to have pandered to my sense of excitement. It's how I feel about Jesus getting asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" as well. When he wasn't a Jew, there were no kings amongst conquered Jews. He might have felt like, "Oh, am I getting promoted? What question did you just ask me? That sounded like something you'd accuse me of, as if you were to accuse me of a crime. But how could any of us be kings? We're slaves that you conquered, Jews that you conquered." So that there's a wind-up of possible excitement, wonderment, possible terror, all mixed together, and then yet he does not confess, and then is killed right then and there. And so that he was a first century bisexual, and that bisexuals are blocked from the recognition of being natural because of the idea of the supernatural is something else I believe in too. Because if you got rid of the term supernatural, the question who was Jesus naturally would have more import to society. If your question for me were do I think hermaphrodites are natural? Absolutely, and absolutely more natural than Adam and Eve, of course. We don't have, evolutionists complain that why aren't monkeys still giving birth to monkeys today? A copper complained to me saying, so do you think Adam and Eve just evolved? I said, I wanted to say, I think, Eve just evolved out of your rib, man. And that's why you got to carry 2 guns with you when you're walking with a runt who hasn't grown much since his teens. Because I pose such a hazardous threat. But since it always proves later to be to your shame that you handle me without consent, since I haven't been in a fight since before puberty, all I ask is that you keep true to your text and do what the perfect but shamed do, which they do in the Garden of Eden, which is that they wear groin leaves. Now, since I want to demonstrate that I'm the bigger man and not touch or handle your groins in any way, I'm going to ask that you wear the leaves over the front of your groins, over the front of your uniform pants. That way all the citizenry can see that you have your holsters, and then you have a leaf just hanging over your dicks and your ponies when you're working. Because then you can go, then everyone can go, wow, the cops are so into the Bible, it's astonishing. But so that's the ethical drama and dilemma in pansexuality, is who gets to choose and why, and would a kid resent their parents their entire life for imposing a sex change decision on them without them knowing it, or if they consider themselves too young to have had the surgery, would they hate their parents and regret it? And the questions like that. I'm trying to cover the generals in this 15 minutes, thereabouts. But if this is the truth, which is something I'm seeking to understand more of, that the bisexual's experience of self is that gender doesn't follow when you're looking for prospective mates and close relationships. It's just it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if the women you hang out with were to start growing armpit hair and not shaving their legs and cutting short hair, and all the men had long hair and we wore bras and things like that. If the bisexual is
blind in that regard. And Bowie sings a lot in these themes, of these themes, which I think is awesome, and saw the importance of these issues rising back when, Star Trek was fighting over the network letting just barely tolerating a black woman at the comm station of a spaceship, because it's like, well, they're not slaves anymore, but are you sure you want them to captain an imaginary starship? I mean, that's a bit of a Lincoln log right there, isn't it? I think they were very. I think the world was too harsh on Star Trek, and Bowie just seemed to charm everyone, or else establish a point of indifference. And that's the other unique quality about studying his art lyrically, and as well as with his philosophical influences, which include people like Freud, Nietzsche, and Einstein. That's the end of my gender chat today. So, have a good day, and remember that I'm not crazy. Hey. Huh? Gives you one alternative that I'm mentioning, obscene as it is nonetheless, which is to say, well, if his or her consent can't be obtained and cannot be the same person, because the divider is an or. It's just a his or her, whereas there are people that are both a his or and a her in varying respects, between transgenders, bisexuals, whether an anatomic male feels or is paternally female on the basis of only raised by women, or a woman only raised by men, and so either way, the nature versus nurture dichotomy gets blown off the radar altogether, because we can't see how it's specific enough so as to evade contest of this kind. That same sort of sexism can apply to the first book of the Gospel of John, chapter 1. In the beginning, the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and then the Word became flesh. And that's, well, that kind of, it's talking about the arrival of Jesus in that verse, but it matches more to God being a supernatural male creating Adam, which is incoherent, but also woman's creation isn't covered by John verse 1. And woman, you would say that all womankind, in addition to being subjugated with sexism by statements like the perfect woman is a virgin mother, which is the highest standard to raise for women today, as though there's some progress is being made, but the day that virgin mothers will have their slot on Oprah is probably some years away still. General health is another oddity, because the Mental Health Act agents will tell you, well, you're under the Mental Health Act, you're not under the Human Rights Act. But under the Human Rights Act, before we introduce religion, you've got right to life, health, movement, and expression. Life, health, movement, and expression. So you've got those four, and health is one of them. So whenever a mental health clinician or doctor says you're under the Mental Health Act, they're saying you may be subjugated to scientific medical experimentation and or treatment without his or her consent. So in the event that a person's not a his or her, if they're transgender, if they're bisexual, then it's to imply that they can use a loophole of going, well, psychiatry must therefore be a mandate
target every single person who is transgender, target every single person who is bisexual, and force them into psychiatry because the Human Rights Act states that we can get away with it if we do, until that law is changed. And that won't be close to happening until the class divide that exists in the present day is abolished altogether. Just as a person may change their gender and have a fake penis or a fake vagina or fake tits made, it's also in the Bible. It's women who are faked from a rib, and these stories used to say it's why men have one less rib on one side of the rib cage. But in principle, the woman is like what a handbag is to a woman today. It's like an accessory class of person, because the conditions were deemed good enough by the God of the Bible to say, well, Adam, do you mind wanking in front of an ever-present God that surrounds you everywhere and while enjoying your privacy? It's like going to the police watch house where they have a camera pointed at your toilet and a camera pointed at your water fountain, and the cameras in all the corners, and then they have the audacity to ask you if you want any privacy after they frisked you and touched your balls and everything like that too. So that gets a bit more complicated there. Now, that the idiosyncratic truths we're discovering about women being just as capable as men were, if not better, at certain jobs. Pansexuality is a complex and sensitive topic. For some, it's nominated, and surgery is when a person reaches a certain age and is given a choice. Do you want to be a boy or a girl? The choice is going to be imposed. Sometimes it's during infancy, and an infant will simply just grow into the gender that the parents decide for them. But yeah, what I find to be two things I find to be consistent throughout is that this idiosyncratic phenomenon where a person is capable to work in any type of job that they like is finally a right that more and more tolerance is being shown in professionalism. With bilaterals and bisexuality, I think sort of the androgynous, sort of like I love on Black Labyrinth by John Davis the song Gender, and the line in the chorus where he says at the end of the chorus, tear my gender down, because it's effectively about gender being a non sequitur connotative to a close relationship. So whatever the gender is of the person that you've met, it's going to have no bearing on whether you're able to become friends, close friends, prospectively date, and prospectively be romantically involved and intimately involved with. It's irrelevant in relation to gender. And there's also obviously even arguments, and Bowie's song Rebel Rebel from 74 talks about this. You got your mother in a well, she's not sure if you're a boy or a girl. Well, she would be sure in a sense, if, knowing your anatomy. So he's obviously talking there about something else, and that something else is this idiosyncratic phenomenon of character of content, which will be viewed to be effeminate. But it won't from the own person's own point of view, as their self as a reference frame. It'll come about from being pointed out to them. I found this with cosmetics, for instance. I was originally getting called gay regularly at work, and I had read an interview that discussed the tactical strategies of wearing cosmetics to staff events in the event you've got like predo bosses, because if you do, they'll see you in makeup, and your bosses who have their wives, and you're glad that they do have their wives. You would favor an end to their commentating, at least directly in your presence. So you wear makeup and you wear it really badly to when you make public appearances, to staff gatherings or whatever. And so this gets trivialized, but I think it's important because yeah, you can have macho strong women who can bash up people that are a threat to you, and while you're her boyfriend, you know, and the relationship still be considered as legitimate as any other between the two of you. So that's the idiosyncratic constant variable, and I think that applies in that sense, and then it also applies to bisexuals by way of gender identity non-specific, which is why I want my Facebook to take my sex down off my profile. Facebook also forces you to put on a profile what your sex is, and that can be a question that you can't answer. However, that can only be viewed, in my case, as they say that I'm insane due to video. I can never encounter this problem on Facebook if I read it off a television screen, or print to paper, or read it or review it on a screen, or read it on paper in the Human Rights Act, where smile, motherfuckers. Hello, I'm testing this effect, and I don't. Okay. I don't much like this one here either, but it will do. In keeping with the fashion of Jacqueline Glenn's old school video clips, I've decided to adopt the I'm not crazy while I talk, while being dangerously close to a knife. A knife that could harm you good. But yeah, it'll move around a bit. One moment it'll be in one place, and then the next moment another. The topic I've been addressing just in a recent segment of my book is on the LGBT community and the definition thereof. And I have read how it's been said as LGBTQ community, and I'll probably get updated because there's maybe some things I'm ignorant on. I'll find out. But if gay and queer is a distinction on the idiosyncrasies of the personality of the gay person, then I should have it already covered while mentioning by pansexuals, which is not specifically emphasized in LGBT as it is anyway. So I was saying what we seem to have going on in role play and in the workplace is that equal rights have been first applied in most respects to the hetero community first, in terms of women are more capable of doing jobs that in the past only men can do. There's the elimination of pay prejudice of hourly wage. Certain jobs where there would be as much as 30% less an hour for a female worker. So you already have it that gay boys are for gay boys, gay girls are for gay girls, lesbians. That I'm not Sarah Jessica Parker. And lines of discrimination in health. When I talk about the health, but the Human Rights Act being extorted, and a person just going
Well, no, it's not. A person getting told, by a doctor, no, it's not, and without any reason given. The question of the age-old stereotype, what makes a man and what makes a woman a woman, that's been asked for decades, and always in a trans anatomic sense, is what goes into the subcategories of address of can a woman be in the army and things like that, questions like that, and that's only a small aspect of what I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover at large that a person who is transgender can be pre or post-op, so they can be at heart, they feel like they're the opposite sex member themselves on the inside, and that's not anatomically reflected on the outside. Then they can be post-op transgender. But then I again argue that the same questions of, fairness in the workplace all extend out that apply to heteros. How is it they don't also apply to every other type? Unless you were talking of a role that, by definition, had to be without being sexist. With the Mental Health Act, the statement that a person may not be subjected to scientific, medical experimentation and or treatment without his or her consent, that's a without his/her, as in his or her, and some people aren't his or her. And that won't still be enough for the finance master. You got, robbed. You get robbed, raped, accused of a hard crime over the phone in the span of same day, 2 days, before you have a chance to file a report, while knowing the camp group you worked for 10 years is about as in league with the AP as Eve was once in league with Adam's missing rib, and you fucking can't do a thing about it. You can't report her. She's military and shoot, and it's a chick, and anyone who's been getting kicked on and called a faggot anyway, if they say they get raped by a chick, everyone laughs, goes, oh, you should have thought that was fucking awesome. Having sex while I was DJing at a club of 400 people, that was fucking awesome. Getting fucking raped by a skanky old boss in the army, that was fucking something. It's something that you're only obliged really for promotional purposes, but there wasn't even space for that in the particular job I was in. So I must have been really lonely living in a house of my own. Funny how uncle and auntie might consider the prospect that Luke may develop such a brain that is disposed to feeling really alone when left on his own in a home. You wouldn't have any clue where that might stem from genetically, do you? Oh, please can stop confusing bloodlines with genetics. Genetics have mechanics that receive and express. Like oxygen in out. It's like saying I might as well have been at Yarn Street going like to fucking cause the fight between dad and mum. I was in Carlingford, Penn Hill, Sydney. Did I have telepathic ability there? Go like, Father, it is time. Take the knife. As my uncle's Bible says, if a man is in a fight with another man and the woman draw it in, so as to take her partner's offended by the secrets, then shalt thou cut off her hand. Now, my father obeyed the Bible that your father pushed on him, and I absolutely know all of this has to be true. You wouldn't have admitted me from any and all religious ceremonies, inclusive of that of Granddad's funeral, Granddad's ashes. Went to Granddad's funeral, and I still kept the eulogy. I still kept that booklet, but I wasn't there for the ashes. And I also didn't get to view or say goodbye to my own father's dead body, all out of the same fucking rape from the same military cunt. Now, I'm going to kill her career, be it coordinated from about 5 to more countries all at once, but that is a topic for another day. My topic can chat to you about this matter, and you can play this recording back with Mum till the cows come home, and you utterly milk them, because maybe you're into Genesis 2 more than Genesis 1, where God and land animals are made on the same day, and you can fucking You get utterly milky and fucking debate morals of it later. But for now, fucking that's where it's at. Do not sue American artists. All it takes is one of us having a bad rag week, and it all comes back. Oh. Now I'm going to buy some shelf service tampons. Coles shelf service tampon savings. Fuel 15.99. Unleaded 153.9. Diesel 14.99. Wow, it's awesome. So either way, you motherless fucks, I won't be getting a job again here in Australia if I do get my health back because of what this fucking decade has entailed for us all. And my best friends aren't going to be getting fucking ripped off by whoever's doing it. Even I'll disown. It was once suggested to me I could use my mother's maiden name, Dutton. So there you go. Everyone sue Luke Dutton, born 18th of 3rd, 1984, at number 119 Namarang Crescent, Warramanga, when I was first COVID'd by my mother's two eyes. 119. There it is, the number again. It's like coming up all over the block. Such a coincidence as. Anyway, I can sue that name, and maybe it'll lead traces to if my uncle's ripping off what my granddad would call the Yank mob. Them Yanks mob. Well, he'd also say, watch your poison. My favourite line from my granddad is, watch your poison. And various encouragements that I kill at certain things, which obviously eliminated people or a person. So I appreciate those two things. I kill at a friend who I said kill a party when I put on a good party, and killer can be like a exclamation, like bitching. If you catch a bitching wave on a boogie board at beach, doesn't mean that you were standing on the back of a big titted fucking chick in a bikini with tit crack cocaine to snort off her titties as you caught waves. If my uncle's suing any Americans, I'll reverse all the suits, just help me get out of here and take one or two suits from my cupboard, and maybe the Nintendo. And that's all I ask. Okay, love you, bye. See, Ivan, with my uncle and my Sydney brothers, I love them, but what I have to understand that I got left with was, holding up the knife to butter my bread, and Granddad thinking I was trying to do what is I later learned the British call to draw parry or something, as in to draw a sword in preparation for a sword fight, was what Granddad had thought I was my motives at the time of buttering bread at the Carlingford house after fucking Mum's attack. Now, I've been able to fucking recover from, it hasn't been a lot aside from Christmas gatherings, festive gatherings, or wedding gatherings, or funeral gatherings that makes us, bonds us as family. And they're the things that, weddings aside, I actually have a lot of resentment about. They're not particularly awesome events. Now we've got fucking, you have no idea how much, like, do you think that if you go against the belief in hell, you'll be a genius for bunking one level underground? Like, there's the equivalent of underground pyramids, man. Fucking people under people, fucking running industry and shit, where they all converge in their secret societies and whatever, and their land rights are fucking inherent shit. All of that is probably responsible for what we were panicking over and calling climate change a while back, and the year's going to end in 12 more years. You need to have people that call bullshit on people around, and bullshit's going down, or there's just going to be disasters for everyone. No, my second point is, uncle of blood, have you ever known of, I know that there are like websites that none of us are into with boy toys and stuff, but there was one brand called Roy Toys, and I think you didn't like it. But have you ever tried having a workplace superior who's a military pharmacist who aspirates you after you've been fired while you're trying to medicate, while the psychiatrist has instructed you to concentrate on how bad it felt during the first 5 years of your childhood, and you get ass raped, robbed, and then accused of a dangerous crime over the phone, all within about a couple of days of each other? Has that ever happened to you? So I don't want to hear. You can tattoo Father Roy on your third nipple. I'm not fast. I've got you guys back if you call me for some shit, but I'm not fast. And if you have been screwing over Americans who I love, there's just going to be returns. The returns will be on me. Sending Mum $2,000 a little bit after the year 2000, the Y2K bug from William Hudson Crescent. So, like, to have some sort of secret code going on here where, like, I get to hear all these cryptic rearranging of words and numbers, don't actually have to do anything with them. I want an actual career. And my goal is to have an actual career. Right. Yeah. I still believe in you all and I still love you all, but put it down to a science. You cannot be a Christian believer in Genesis creation and a lover or a hater of the narrative point from the ransom money abduction through the execution of Jesus without being a predatory biphobe, which means you'll sacrifice your own young if they're not Christian and are not biphobic, and you are Christian and you are biphobic. You'll sacrifice them every which way. You'll here at my local Shell Servo, you go in and ask the cunt there, Wayne, and you go, is Wayne here? Like, is it true Luke used to buy server pies off you? Oh, could you please read his last will and testament? If I quickly jot down what it meant, and then Wayne here will be like, yeah, fucking Luke didn't mind the odd beef, egg and bacon pie of a morning. I noticed he wouldn't fart at 5 a.m. where the wind had changed at the door on his way out. Luke will be dearly missed. Like, we have to cut the fucking shit about this thing. Okay, it's fucking 2021. Fucking Annie Lennox singing about this sort of time, Bo singing about this sort of time. These are tough times. It's not time to go, well, since we came from the Great Depression, we can always go back every time. Just make sure your next depression is going to be even greater. That's what you got to do. That's all. Simple. How are you doing, man? Yeah, have a cigarette. This is... Have you seen you around here before? You look like my friend Danny. Yeah, okay. So, that'd be that fucking story. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And I'm watching this decor. Don't do any deals with Roger at all. Don't trust him or Gary Cans. He's trying to get knighthoods from the extortion of our family. Don't always think one person is at fault for every wrong either. That's John 3:16 for you again. And that's about all. Because I'm going to have a cigarette.